I think Bitcoin as digital gold is something that benefits from instability, market instability, government instability, geopolitical instability. All of this instability, generally speaking, leads to the search for safe haven assets, to assets that aren't necessarily yield bearing, but that are going to serve a kind of de-risking function. Now it's interesting and kind of funny that you have a new asset type that's pretty young that people are starting and already in many cases view as a safe haven asset that'll de-risk them. But it actually makes sense when you think about it through the lens of diversification. So diversification is the big word is this. I would say diversification is the single biggest defining word of the last, I don't know, maybe 50 years, maybe 70 years of asset management, where your optimal strategy is not to invest or hold or have two or three things in one sector. Unless you're a really great professional investor of some kind like Warren Buffett or someone. The vast majority of people in the asset management world will recommend to the vast majority of everyone else that they engage in diversification. And so what does that mean? What that basically means is if something can become a type of asset, like a safe haven asset, right? Like this Bitcoin thing is not correlated with the Nasdaq. It's actually it's uncorrelated to it, and it's correlated to growing instability, financial markets instability, government instability, geopolitical instability, whatever their instability for whatever collection of ideas that people might have in their mind, what right or wrong, whatever those ideas are. If that is an idea that appears, then the people that allocate capital and the people that tell people how to allocate capital will say, oh, okay, so I have this thing. How does it fit into diversification? Oh, okay. The answer is it behaves this way. And if I want to be hedged against that, I should have some of it. And so that is the fundamental, Bitcoin digital gold thesis that I think in a world of instability will work. It will work in my opinion, personally. I can see how if you have instability and Bitcoin is seen as a hedge or as something that's inversely correlated with instability, or it grows in proportion to being, the whole safe haven narrative. And then people say, hey, I need 5% in gold and I need 2.5% in Bitcoin. If everybody who allocates capital puts 2.5% in Bitcoin, Bitcoin is going to grow significantly. So that's the basic thesis there.
How much? Like grow like does it cap off like after like I don't know. I see these charts all the time that Bitcoin is just 0.5% of global money or stuff like that. Can it get to 1% of global money? Or I guess 2.5?
I mean, I haven't seen exactly those charts. I would look at what percentage of the largest asset managers, portfolios, sovereign wealth funds, maybe even central banks, possibly if the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve from the US goes in the right direction. What percentage of that universe of folks that allocate capital have Bitcoin, and what percent? And if the answer is they as a group in total have less than 0.5% allocated into Bitcoin, then you only have two questions. Question number one is, will global instability increase? And if the answer is no, then okay, maybe safe haven assets aren't as valuable. And then the second question is, will Bitcoin be viewed as a safe haven asset? Will it be viewed as an asset that is not going to be exposed to the same risks as Nvidia equity or real estate ownership or whatever other asset types? If the answer to both of those questions is yes, more instability, yes, Bitcoin's a safe haven asset, And the answer to the first question is below 0.5% or below 1% of total capital allocation globally, then that's the answer. The answer is I think maybe everyone could get to a few percent of Bitcoin if the other two questions are yeses. And I think that number is far beyond this number. I think generally that will always help our industry. That'll always get everyone to pay more attention to our industry, so that'll be positive. The rest of the industry has other things that it does. So I think Bitcoin adoption will generally be positive for our industry, but there are so many other innovative things in our industry, and they don't have the Bitcoin digital gold thesis. So they will not do the same thing.
The only reason that I ask is because when I hear these numbers, tens of trillions are going to be tokenized, hundreds of trillions, whatever eventually, I just think Bitcoin does one thing really well. And in this world, it's hard to imagine the world being digitized, tokenized. Does that, I would never, I'm not asking you to predict the future. Nobody can. But does that lead to something bigger than right now what's leading the crypto market, Bitcoin, in the future?
I think tokenization leads to something bigger from a technology and a financial markets and a kind of change in how the financial system and even governments and society works. Because of the hundreds of trillions that we're talking about currently existing off-chain, I do believe that vast majority of that will end up on-chain on some time scale over the next few years. Even if 5% ends up on-chain, this industry is a huge success. If 10% ends up on-chain, it's a massive success. It's like beyond massive. And so I think it'll go way, the stuff in the equity markets, commodity markets, all of this stuff settles in weird ways. Collateral management is really not great. You have huge costly errors about data and reporting and corporate actions that cost literally hundreds of millions every year. You have all this fraud. You have all this random shit that most people don't understand because they're not building the financial system. They're using the financial system as users, so they don't need to know how it works. Just like they don't know how a car works, but they drive around in it. But really, yeah, in this car analogy, I think we're going from like the horse and buggy to the car. I think that's what's going to happen. And so the vast majority of people will be riding around in cars. It is my expectation. So the total value of what's on a blockchain, I think, will be tokenized non-Bitcoin stuff. So if Bitcoin reaches 5, 10, 20 trillion, whatever number it reaches, the only way that Bitcoin represents more value than all the tokenized stuff is either that tokenization doesn't happen and Bitcoin's the only thing that keeps growing in value along with a few other tokens, or tokenization happens, you have hundreds of trillions of dollars in value on chain. You have Bitcoin, which is also on chain in the 5, 10, 20 trillion camp. Or not 5, 10, 20 trillion, actually. And you basically have hundreds of trillions tokenized, and you have people decide that 50% of their portfolio for their country's sovereign wealth fund or their college university pension fund or their retirement fund will be Bitcoin. I mean, I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I don't see all the sovereign wealth funds and pension funds and retirement funds of everybody suddenly deciding I'm not going to own equity. I'm not going to own commodities. I'm going to go 50% into Bitcoin. I mean, that's possible. I mean, at that point, you're way past 1 million per Bitcoin. You're way past that. You're probably at like tens of millions per Bitcoin at that point. But that isn't really how diversification usually looks. So barring something like that, the on-chain world will be predominantly tokenized off-chain things, equities, commodities, funds. And the thing that'll actually do is it'll change our industry by definition. So our industry will now be defined by all those off-chain tokenized things more than it'll be defined by cryptocurrencies. Because by the numbers, our industry will be about that. When people think about the blockchain and on-chain and our industry, they won't think about it as cryptocurrency. They'll think about it as tokenization, because that's the thing that has the most value inside of it in our industry, which will be a great thing for our industry and also a good thing for Bitcoin.
Be sure to click subscribe. We drop a video every single day keeping you informed about crypto.